Hey, what is up, y'all? I wanted to talk about my book of the week from this week, and that it's probably a lot of people's books. It was Superman, Absolute Superman, issue number 3. I'm going to try to do this without any spoilers, so if you haven't read any of the Absolute Superman books, first off, get on it. What are you doing? Secondly, I'm going to try to keep spoilers to a minimum, but at this point, it's going to be a little hard to talk about this book. So let's get into it. Absolute Superman issue 3 really lets us know who these characters are. I've seen a few folks that have been a little annoyed or frustrated that we're getting so much backstory and not as much happening in the present. But I think that to me is the most interesting part of this series so far. It's a completely different Superman, and we need to understand that backstory to really understand who this version of Kal-El is, how he operates, why some of the power set seemed a little low when we first saw him. And this really does that. I think we're getting to see a lot of what makes him who he is. We're getting to see that not only are his family kind of integral to who he is, but the class system and him fighting back against that classist mentality that the Kryptonian society had is like integral to what he's doing when we find him, liberating miners to some degree. And this issue, I think, really sets the tone for that. There's so much good stuff in this book. I love seeing Jor-El and Lara. Their story is really interesting. We get to see them fighting back against the Science League and kind of trying to get them to understand that the world is dying, that it's been... it seems like they've been doing a little too much harvesting of certain things. This is a very clear environmental message coming from this book, it seems. I think keep the woke out of comic books folks probably hate to read this, but it is so good and it's so interesting. I think the way that it shows that the Science League, mild spoilers, the Science League actually has been listening and do understand what's happening, and they just don't care to help anyone that they deem as lower in value. And that's where you get to see this classist system like really take hold. It's a very common theme in science fiction. I feel like the world's dying and only the people at the very top get to be rescued from it. And that is definitely seems to be what's happening here. Lara's a badass. I loved seeing Lara in this book. She's just fucking smoking people. This was awesome. Crypto gets some really great moments in this. We also really get to see Kal-El kind of come into his own in this particular issue as a young kid. And I love the notes of him being this investigative journalist, kind of finding his voice in that way. That was a really nice callback to Clark, being a reporter. I really enjoyed that. And we also get kind of Jor-El and Lara's ultimate mission. And we see exactly what they're aiming for. And I think it's a pretty big game changer, and the last panel of this book had me in shock and also just so curious to see what's happening here. I don't want to give it away because you absolutely have to read this book. It is so interesting, and I cannot wait to find out exactly what they're doing here, because I think Jason Aaron is just creating an entirely new way to look at the Superman mythos and what that means for his character. And I cannot wait, because I think with what they did on the last couple of pages in this book, I think it's going to be pretty spectacular, and I think it's going to be something we really haven't seen before. So Absolute Superman issue 3 was off the charts. I think this is super, super great. The storytelling is incredible. I feel like we're going to start moving into more present day stuff after this issue. So for folks that are a little bit tired of seeing the backstory, I think that's going to start shifting now that we fully see kind of what led them to have Kal-El be on Earth. So pick this up. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm so stoked. And yeah, let me know what you thought.